Today, you're probably going to be super happy because I'm going to show you how to play a super aggressive response that gives me impressive results against the queen's pawn. Many of you don't know how to react correctly and decisively against this move by white, and I'm going to show you in this video how to do it to start winning a lot of games. We'll start with an aggressive response that will sound familiar, but it has nothing to do with what you know. Let me explain. The first move is e5, but it has nothing to do with the typical gambit, you know? It's true that we've refuted this typical gambit even on this channel, right? You take here, then with the knight, with the queen, we give check, which I'm sure most of you know all about, but that's not where we're headed. Let me explain. Chess teacher, why are you giving away this pawn? Very easy, because when they capture it, our opponent will indeed have an extra pawn, but now what we're going to do is play d6, so that we're telling them the following: you have an extra pawn, and also, if you want, you can eat this other pawn. Therefore, you already have that pawn secured. In fact, that's what they're gonna do, because if not, we'll capture it ourselves and they won't have any advantage, right? And when they capture and have two pawns, we'll recapture with the bishop. Conclusion? Are we down a pawn? Correct. We've completely given it away. But in exchange, we have some super easy attack lines that will be very simple for you to memorize. Look, the plan is as follows. First of all, what do we want to do? Move these pieces from the queen side, okay? Develop knight, bishop, and queen from the queen side to be able to castle long. This is the first thing you have to get into your head. I want to develop this to castle long. Perfect. So I don't really care what my opponent does. That's one of the most important reasons, right? For example, if you play knight f3, just to say something, okay? What am I going to do? Develop the queen side first. For example, knight c6. How do I know what order I should use? Well, you can use whatever order you want. Normally, since they don't have direct attack motives, you'll have plenty of time to keep developing. If they let you, I recommend that this bishop comes over here to attack the knight. If they don't let you, it's okay, but I'd say it's the ideal position. Very well, let's see, what can our opponent do here? Well, once again, they can make 1,001 moves. Let's assume they play, for example, knight c3. It would also be possible for them to move the pawn to develop the bishop. I don't care. What am I going to do? I'm going to develop this bishop. You letting me put it here? I'm going to put it there because it's the position where I like to have this bishop the most. What are we threatening over here? Well, we're threatening the following. If you now develop, for example, this other bishop, I'm going to take it, doubling the pawns. And this is positive for me. Normally, they don't let their pawns be doubled, and for example, they play e3, so that now if we capture, queen takes bishop, and they don't double pawns, and we've given up the bishop pair for nothing, right? What are we going to do? Castle on. Okay, chess teacher, but where do I put the queen? Because there are several options here. Queen d7, queen e7, f6, right? Well, look, I recommend you place this queen on e7 so they don't get too clever trying to open a center, so we always have an eye on the central pawn, okay? That queen would also be fine, for example, on f6, yeah? Maybe not on d7. Maybe not on d7 because we want to keep the queen's file open. And you'll see why. Because when we castle long, this file will be occupied by the rook, and we'll have super direct attacks. You'll see that this strategy is very easy to follow, and especially from now on, white is going to run into serious trouble. I'll tell you one thing, if you like these kinds of videos, since it's been a few days since I uploaded one like this, leave me a big thumbs up, okay? If you leave a like, I'll see that you guys like these videos too. Very well, and now what? We developed the queen. Well, they can do anything. For example, bishop d2 is what I see most often to get out of the pin. And if you've been paying attention, what are we going to do? Obviously, castle one. Very well, chess teacher. When you explain these kinds of situations, what I see is this. I can develop the pieces like you tell me, but then my opponent doesn't do what you say, and then I don't know how to continue. Take it easy, take it easy. I'll show you what to do if they make a serious mistake here. There's a serious mistake here that I find, especially with those kinds of players who only play online, who only focus on their own thing. They develop their pieces and now they counsel. Well, castling here would be a huge blunder that would lose the game, because we have the rook's discovered attack on the queen. See it? Simply, we must move the bishop, we do it with a check, and then we'll take the queen. You see it, right? But usually here, the more experienced players realize this and don't castle. Well, just so you know, whenever you have this discovery, if this bishop can move while giving check, you're going to win the queen. Not only if they castle. For example, if they move this knight, it's a mistake, but you'd give check and win the queen, right? Very well. So here, if they don't castle, the best thing would maybe be to play bishop d2, right? They develop a bishop, and not only that, but they also make sure that this queen isn't attacked by a discovered attack. Very well, chess teacher, and now what do I do? Well, they haven't fallen into any traps, right? That's the good thing. They haven't fallen into any traps. Why? Because we know what to do. We have our pieces ready to launch an attack on the opponent's castled position. And we're always going to start with the same move. Once we have everything developed, queenside castled, and they haven't fallen into any traps, we go for the queenside. At some point, obviously, they're gonna have to castle, because if the king stays in the center, we're gonna start pushing the pawns and opening things up here. And the king in the center, of course, is extremely easy to punish. In fact, if I remember correctly, yesterday we uploaded a class specifically in the academy to teach how to punish the king in the center when they don't castle. Okay. For those of you in the academy, I recommend you watch it, okay? All right, we carry out this attack. Now, our opponent here can actually do several different things, all right? The most common thing they'll usually do is this. They'll go ahead and castle, right? For now, our attack doesn't look promising. And although it might seem a bit scary to have the king castled because an attack is being launched, it would still be much more dangerous to stay with the king in the center. There's no doubt about it. All right, here many of you are probably wondering the following. Can't they kick out the bishop with a move like h3? Let's see it, because this is extremely interesting. For example, they castle and we play knight to c6. Important, right? Don't leave the last piece undeveloped. It's always right to have all the pieces toward the attack, isn't it? What happens if they play h3? First of all, there's no need to move the bishop, although now I'm going to show you a method to go for checkmate in a super effective way. However, here, if you want to act a bit cool or show off, huh? You just move the king or do anything else, because they can't take this bishop. Because if they take this bishop, we'd take back with the pawn, the knight has to move, and I don't care where it goes, because all I have to do is jump in with the knight and enter with the queen, and this checkmate would be practically unstoppable, alright? In other words, this bishop here is practically untouchable. However, I'm gonna show you a way to go after the opponent. We don't really care if they fall for the trap or not. For example, my question is, how can I go attack the castled king? Well, it occurs to me, for example, to come with this queen over here, and with the queen and the bishop attack for checkmate. But of course, now this knight prevents my most powerful piece, which is the queen, from entering the attack. So what am I going to do? An extremely simple but effective move, I eliminate the knight. Simple as that. Bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop. And this always works. You'll see that you can always carry out this attack. And now I bring in the queen. Remember, whenever this bishop moves and you have a discovered check, you can win the queen, right? And here many of you will wonder, let's see, chess teacher, yes, you're threatening checkmate, but it's very easy to stop. Actually, we're not just looking for a checkmate that our opponent doesn't notice, but what we're doing is forcing them to weaken themselves. In this case, the only way to stop the checkmate is this: advance the pawn. And here they're completely lost, because all we have to do is open the diagonal again. If they take, checkmate. If they advance, checkmate. So what do? They can't do anything, no matter how much they try to defend the pawn. Pawn takes pawn, bishop, pawn takes pawn, queen takes, the king has to go back. We still give checkmate, or we could even capture it here and give mate. As you can see, this attack is devastating. But what if my opponent plays more actively? Very simple. Look, we give away the pawn, and now we give away this other one, although we are going to recover this second one, importantly, with the bishop. Because that's what we want to do, okay? To have this bishop here ready to go to either the king side or the queen side. And now, what is our plan? Develop the queen side however you like. For example, knight to c6. You bring the bishop out to attack, right? It's always better here if they let us, though it's rare they'd play this little move right away that would bother us a lot. Then our bishop could come out this way, but I never see that, so the bishop is fine over here. But what if they play actively and come after us? Very well. Simple. Many here surely thinking, sure, for example, on the white side, right? Sure, I'm attacking the queen. If they pin with the knight, I can keep pressing, and this is dangerous. The thing is, of course, since we want to castle long, we don't mind playing f6. We're attacking the bishop, and now we'll simply follow our plan: queen to e7 to castle long. And on top of that, they're hurting themselves a bit because we can keep attacking this bishop with pawns and gaining time. Do you remember? If they castle short, this position is wonderful for us because it's the same as before, but gaining tempos with these pawns. Very, very good. Well, at some point they'll have to play e3 to develop the bishop, otherwise they won't be able to develop their pieces, and then we continue with our plan. It's true. If you just memorize the moves by heart, you're gonna feel lost here because of course the knight was going here, and now what? No, 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 no. Simple. Remember the plan, okay? What was our plan? Castle long, develop pieces, and now try to attack. Simple. For example, earlier chess teacher told me the bishop went to e2, but they put it on d3 for me. What happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. We just understand. Why was the bishop going to e2? To avoid pins from our own bishop, right? If it went to e2, the good thing was that we had discovered attacks with the rook. For example, if it goes to d3, the good thing is that this pin is much stronger, and for example, we can play knight to e5, add more fuel to the fire. You see it, right? And now this knight is being attacked quite a bit. They have two options: either pull the bishop back again, which would be the same as before but with extra tempos, so we'd be much better off. Or they do the logical thing and say, fine, if they want to break my pawn structure on the king side, I'll castle on the queen side. You might run into this too, and the same thing would happen again. Oh, chess teacher, they're doing something you didn't tell me. In your little trap, in your opening, let's say, in your gambit, you wanted to attack the king short, but what if they want to castle long? Easy. We have our weapons well placed to go and attack both flanks. We have the attack on the king side. We reposition our bishop now for the queen side. And as you can see, this bishop that's way out in left field can't make it back. You see, right? It can't get back to defend. Therefore, here, if we want, we can double the pawns on the queen side as well. What have we achieved here? That they can't castle on the king side or on the queen side. Why? Because they've been too clever for their own good. If they castle short, we open up here. If they castle long, we open up here. If they force us to open up somewhere, well, we open up without any problem, because this structure is extremely difficult to defend with the white pieces. In this case, we'd have 1,001 moves we could make. For example, attacking the bishop, exchanging here to double the pawns, then placing the bishop here. What this bishop is doing is preventing white from castling short. These holes over here prevent them from castling long, because otherwise we could break in from anywhere. Conclusion, they'll have their king in the center. And since I'm in the academy and I've studied how to attack the king in the center, I'll win this without any problem. So now you know what you have to do. This is very important, what I'm going to show you now, and then I'll leave you be, okay? This is the last thing I'm going to show you now. You must know this, because if not, when they do it to you, you won't know how to react. Now, if you've seen these last 2 minutes in the video, then there won't be a problem, because you'll know how to react. Fine, if they take your pawn, no problem. We already know we're going to play d6. But there's a variation, okay, that the pros use against this gambit, let's say, which is not to take the d6 pawn here, okay, but to delay this capture. How? Well, for example, by playing knight f3. Don't panic, because I have a very easy recipe that's going to work very well for you. And it's the following. First, we continue with the concepts. Where do I want to castle? On the queen side, what am I going to do? Knight 6. Easy, right? You understand the plan, right? Here, they can really do whatever they want, but the most aggressive move is the following: bishop f4. If they take here, we take with the bishop, and we're in the same position as before. Whenever they take, we take back. Yes? And at some point, they're going to have to take, because if not, when we place the queen and everything, we're going to take. But what happens if they place the bishop here, not only defending, but attacking? This is the critical point, okay? Can we continue with our plan? Yes. We continue with our plan, we develop the queen side, but with a subtlety, and I want you to engrave this in your mind. When they use this plan against you, now they really can take here. And careful, careful, because if you don't know this position, you're going to mess it up for me. And I don't want you to mess it up. You've done all this so well, only to ruin it now. Whether you take with the pawn or with the bishop, it's going to be bad news for us. Let me explain. If we take with the pawn, this isolated pawn does several things. First, it stays very weak, and it can be captured at some point in the game. Second, it cuts off our bishop lines and it cuts off our queen lines. Third, when we castle long, the king is going to be exposed. Do we want to take with the pawn? Conclusion? No. Do you want to take with the bishop? No, because they can trade here and the pawn would be isolated. Chess teacher, what now? Do I ignore the pawn? More or less, because here you must remember, and you simply must remember this, if they use this plan of placing the bishop on f4, okay? And you play queen to f6, and all your problems are over. They can't take us because we're attacking the bishop, but we're not just attacking the bishop, we're also attacking b2. How does white solve all of these problems? Well, there's almost no way. Look, if they move the bishop, we take on b2. If they defend b2, we take the bishop. There are only two ways to defend everything. The first would be with the bishop. Hey, thank you very much. I'll take you here, right? And now I'm in the first variation, but it's infinitely better than the first one, right? Because I have three pieces developed, I'll castle on the next move, the queen is already on f6, while my opponent has done nothing. They haven't even made the attempt to develop the bishop to castle, right? So we'd be doing great here. Mind you, there's a better move than going back with the bishop to c1, which is queen to c1. Well, it's a bit passive, that's true. However, it defends the bishop and the pawn, so now we can simply continue with bishop takes pawn. The problem is, now they can trade bishops. Correct, that wouldn't be a problem at all. If they move it, then we just stick to our plan. If they trade bishops, we recapture with the queen. And even if this queen looks exposed, look at how many moves they need to make to put a rook on this file. We have plenty of time to castle long, move the queen, develop the knight, and go straight for an attack on the king side. You'll see that this opening is going to give you extremely strong results. But the most important thing is to remember the concepts and not just the key moves. You should memorize key moves, yes, of course. This queen to f6 if they play the bishop to f4 plan, and nothing else. And more or less the general setup. Try it out, see what you think. If you want more videos on this opening, I'll make them for you. Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you're not in the academy, what are you doing? You're just, if you're only watching these YouTube videos, you're missing out on the best part, man. I'll leave the Academy link right down here in the description. You can join the annual plan now in 2 easy payments if you'd like, huh? And if your wallet would prefer it that way. I hope you loved it, and we'll see each other tomorrow as always, friends, in the next video. Goodbye.